Hey, everybody, welcome back to Pro AV. Today, I'm your host, Ben Thomas. Today, we're breaking down a technology that's really helped evolve the way that we're doing our installations at Pro AV, not only from a form factor size, but also from an accessibility, flexibility, and long term value standpoint. And that is the NUC computer. It's a technology that's been around for about 10 years, but we've got a lot of questions, and we've got a lot of questions that we really want to see answered for not only the long-term future of the technology, but how we can help better leverage the technology in our installation. So I said, why not go straight to the source? I brought on one of the forefathers of NUC technology, and that's John Deatherage over at Simply NUC. John, thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show, Ben.
Well, John, we'll kind of start at the beginning, right? I think a lot of folks assume that a NUC just is a small computer and it's all about form factor, right? But that's not quite the reality of the NUCs, right? Could you talk to us a little bit about the origination of the computer and kind of what makes them so unique and special?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of working with the Intel team to get the Intel NUC started up, and it was really about 12 or 13 years ago where a few of us running the desktop motherboard business sat around a table and said, "What's next?" And the thought is to design the smallest possible motherboard that is scalable from the Intel Celeron clear up to Core i7 processor, and then add as much innovation and feature density as we can to that form factor. We came up with what we call 4x4, 4-inch by 4-inch motherboard, and basically started innovating around it every year, kind of pushing the envelope with technology, using a lot of the mobile technology like SODIMM connectors and M.2 connectors, VGA processors, things like that, where we could pack as much as you possibly could into a small form factor. Kind of tested that idea with something Intel calls their board of advisors, which is a group of their top customers. And we had a little mock-up that we passed around the room and just kind of saw the looks on their faces. And that really told us it looked like we were on to something. And so started up the NUC business back in 2012, and it's been ramping up ever since then.
Well, John, one of the things I love not only about the NUC technology, but Simply NUC specifically is, it's easy to say, hey, these computers were designed for personal computer use, kind of at-home PC, just smaller form factor. But y'all are actually at shows like InfoComm and having conversations about how these could be used in professional and commercial applications. Talk to me a little bit about some of the ways that you're seeing folks leverage NUC technology in their Pro AV installations.
Yeah. PC is probably an understatement for the NUC. It's not just a personal computer. It's a computer for things as well. So we're seeing a ton of interest in most of the growth in things like digital signs, conference room hubs, intelligent vending machines, kiosks, point of sale, self-service walk-up type kiosks, things like that. And they're going into hospitals, schools, airports, retail shops, mom and pop convenience stores, anywhere where people want to digitize something that used to be, much more manual in nature, right? So nobody goes around and plasters a new, piece of paper on top of the old digital sign. It's all, very dynamic and very changeable.
Well, one of the things that I my mind always goes to when I think of small form factors is kind of those single-use devices, and my mind immediately, like I said, goes to like those digital signage boxes, or even like a Roku or an Apple TV or something where it's kind of designed really for one purpose, and that's to deliver content. But talk to me about some of the ways that you've seen, applications like that be used for NUCs, but how it also creates some value outside of maybe some of those single-use and not single-use, single-purpose boxes.
Yeah. As I mentioned before, these boxes, these NUCs, these mini PCs are scalable from Celeron clear up to Core i7, and they're taking Windows and Linux and Android operating systems, and certainly can be used for more than just single-purpose devices. So, in the realm of things like digital signs and stuff, we're seeing the need to do more than just the digital sign, or the digital sign can actually be the second thing that it does. So, example, conference room hub can be running your conference meetings, but when you're not in the room, or when that there are people in the room but not doing a conference, it could be an information board or a digital sign that's advertising something. Intelligent vending machines, when it's not a vending machine, could actually be advertising products from that company, right? So kind of this idea that it doesn't need to be single purpose because it's got a lot more performance and horsepower where it can do other things. It can make the digital sign better too. And we may get into AI and things like that in a little while, but it can analyze the audience that looks at the sign. So I can, as an advertiser, figure out is the demographic I think the one, looking at that sign, am I speaking to that demographic? Maybe the gender and age group of people that are looking at the sign and how long they're looking at the sign. Now I can get all that kind of information to make my sign more intelligent and hopefully, give myself a better opportunity of advertising revenue.
Well, obviously, John, at the end of the day, a NUC is essentially an assembly of components, right? And you see folks, whether it's actual integrators, whether it's manufacturer partners, things like that, developing software, companion software to help run it, right? Whether it's digital signage based, whether it's, data tracking information, things like that. Talk about that process of developing on top of the computer, right? How does that typically happen in a normal installation, and where does that normally happen?
Can you be more specific on what you're getting at there?
Well, yeah. So say I have a MacBook, right? Obviously, someone's got to develop that software and create kind of the use case for it. So if I'm a manufacturer and I'm an integrator, at what point are they developing that software to help kind of run on the NUC as a companion piece? And how do typically those applications? Are you guys involved in a lot of that, or is it done kind of post delivery?
Yeah. So we are involved, and that's normally through our partnerships. We're partnering with signage companies like Signage Live and SiteCorp. We're partnered with conference room companies like Zoom and Teams, for Microsoft, where it's important for our two companies to work together to validate that their software is going to be running optimally on our hardware. But most of it's going to be developed for, Windows environment or potentially Linux environment. Some cases on the entry space, it's going to be the Android environment. So they've got the developer, environment already in those areas, but it is still super important to make sure the hardware and the software are tested and validated and optimized to work together. So we don't have our own software teams per se at my company, but it's very important for us to work closely with partners in that space. Today, a great example, we just launched a joint edge solution with a company called Scale Computing, and Scale and Simply NUC have been working together for months to validate that our hardware and their software are going to work great together and create a great edge experience for the customers that use our joint solution.
Well, John, you mentioned some of those tasks that developers are asking hardware to do, and in a lot of cases, those are becoming far more processor intensive and laborious for some of those machines. When somebody like me, right, comes up off the street and says, "Hey, this is a small form factor computer." Maybe I assume it doesn't quite have the guts that a big old horse and a rack might have. But talk about some of those ways that you've actually seen NUCs be leveraged for really those high processor intensive activities, whether that's, machine learning, AI, VR, things like that.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned audience analytics already, facial recognition, gesture control, where you're just, swiping your hand to move the screen. Those things do take some horsepower. And what you don't want is the CPU to be completely loaded by it. So Intel processors that we use have CPUs and GPUs. The GPU can offload the processor somewhat. Some of the newer processors, though, from Intel, clear down the stack, have something called a Gaussian Neural Accelerator, an Intel GNA, which is going to do the inferencing required for AI and kind of do that as a dedicated processor that frees up the CPU to to handle more of the user interface of the solution itself. And so on the higher end, we've got NUC machines that are able to help, that are able to do the training and learning, but then clear down the stack on the lower end, the actual inferencing and just execution of AI can be done clear down to machines based on Celeron. So kind of have a whole stack of solutions that are available that have the right processors or co-processors inside that are going to help on the high end with the machine learning and clear down the stack with artificial intelligence down in the inferencing space.
Well, John, one of the questions that we hear from integrators, manufacturers, and users, decision makers all the time is, how can I leverage these technologies to be more sustainable, right? And I mentioned kind of some of those single-use and single-purpose devices earlier, kind of being boxes that just do one thing, right? When you think about NUCs and you think about some of the different activities and multi-purpose uses they can help drive, that helps drive not only sustainability but long-term value, longer-term product life cycles, things like that. How have you seen, the NUC specifically drive some of those?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of strengths of the NUC, and tell me if I answer your question or poke a little bit more if you need to. I mean, obviously they're lightweight, they're super low power, they're very easy and flexible to mount on a Den rail, a Visa mount, easy to tuck away. They're OS agnostic, as I've mentioned a few times. We believe once we've worked with our partner to image them, it's a great out-of-box experience. So for the person installing them, they can just connect them up and they work. Some of them have functions like watchdog timers that will help the product auto reset if something gets hung up somewhere. There's auto power on function. A lot of them can be managed remotely. So if I've got a fleet of machines out there and I need to push another image, or my CMS needs to push another signage campaign down to them, they can be managed remotely. We found over the years, we've been in the NUC business for about 8 years now, that these are highly reliable. We're seeing failure rates of well below 1% out in the field. A lot of happy customers using these things 3, 5, 7 years reliably. We have some of our product lines that are long life, where we'll offer them up to our customers for 7 years. So, I think that those are kind of a lot of the strengths of why, you want to choose NUC or look at NUC when it comes to installations across a lot of these different AV industries.
Well, it really is a way to invest in long-term value, right? Not only from a function standpoint, but from an actual physical operation standpoint. And if you need to repurpose it, you can. They're obviously computers, so you can have them serve multiple purposes and things like that. And we're going to continue to have these sustainability conversations as an industry. So I'd love to hear that. Really, that's one of the things that you guys are having conversations about. And speaking kind of the future of NUCs and the AV industry, Intel recently came out and said that they were sunsetting their own NUC line and investing more heavily in OEM partner relationships. What does that mean for you guys specifically? What are some of the implications that it has for the AV industry?
Yeah, before I go there, just a couple other advantages I see to installing some of the NUC technology out there. I know dragging cables can be an issue in a lot of these situations, and so there are many PCs and NUCs that are powered over Ethernet. So being able to drag that single Cat5 out there, get your communications and power to the same device, saves an extra cable drag, right? Some of these are very remote. So some of the mini PCs out there have LTE modules that could be used for remote purposes. So the Wi-Fi is not there, or the clutter is too much and you need a cellular type connection. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of mention a few of those other things before we dive into the news here. So it's been an interesting week for us here at Simply NUC. Intel, as you just mentioned, announced their intentions to stop investing in the Intel NUC product line. They also, though, announced their intentions to work with ecosystem partners to continue on the NUC technology. I don't think Intel believes or is saying that the NUC is a bad product or isn't working out. I think what they're saying is we want to focus, on processors and process technology, and enable our ecosystem to continue to thrive with mini PCs and NUCs. Good news for my company is we've been working over the years to stand on our own 2 feet with our own branded offering of mini PCs. A lot of our early work was finding gaps in Intel's roadmap, like a fanless solution for more rugged, situations. The long life I talked about, where you could get 7 years of supply. We've also brought up an AMD line, so it's not just Intel, it's Intel and AMD now. And so we kind of filled gaps in the roadmap. But in addition to that, we've also, come across with our own version of the what I would call standard 4x4s. A lot of that was due to supply situations that we all saw a year or two ago, where we felt like if we couldn't get an Intel NUC, we would be able to fill that gap with some of our own branded products. So we're there with our branded stuff. There are other ecosystem partners that have their own branded offering as well. I view this as a huge opportunity because I don't believe, and I don't think Intel believes, that the market doesn't want mini PCs anymore. Once again, I just think they're trying to get more focused. And so I see growth in the digital signage space, in the conference room hub space, in the POS and kiosk spaces, even in desktop usage. But, so things I think that excite us the most: artificial intelligence, edge server, computer vision, all of those areas are super exciting for us. And it's a great opportunity for those ecosystem partners that I talked about before to continue to carry this baton and thrive in the space of NUCs and mini PCs.
Well, John, you bring up a good point, right? And it's not saying that the industry is rejecting it. What it actually is saying is that the industry is growing rapidly, right? If you're someone like Intel, it becomes very difficult to start having to have subject matter experts and entire divisions dedicated to the Pro AV world, right? That's why they invest so heavily in the OEM partners and folks like you guys who really know that space, who are having those conversations. And especially in the AV space, there aren't a ton of folks who are representing the NUC community well, even though they're so widely used across our community. So I'm thankful for your voice. I'm thankful for the work that you guys are doing over at Simply NUC, and obviously thankful that you took some time today with us to jump on the show.
Well, Ben, thanks a lot for having me. It was great seeing you at InfoComm, and I 100% agree with you. Lots of opportunity for all of us in the AV space. Thank you very much, Ben.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to watch us and subscribe next time to Pro AV Today.